大怪盗アルセーヌ・ルパンが残した不思議な宝物ルパンコレクションがギャングラーに奪われた。失ったものを取り戻すために戦う怪盗、世界の平和を守るために戦う警察、君はどっちを応援する？
Hello and welcome to LupinRecap vs. PatReview, the podcast that's stirring up a storm. I am your host, Lokamasi. With me is my lovely co-host, Fefner Masamune.
You know, sometimes I wonder when the crossover with Lupin the Third is going to happen. Need to see Goemon stab a Ganglar.
We need to see the three Lupins team up with Lupin the Third.
Yep.
You think that's why there are three of them? Probably not. 3 is a pretty standard Sentai team size.
I mean, the Lupin Rangers are Lupin to the power of 3, while this one's Lupin the Third.
And that's right, we are a Lupin Ranger vs. Pot Ranger recap and review podcast. Today we're covering episode 44. Before that, I wanted to talk a bit about character death. That is, the death of reoccurring characters. Well, reoccurring can be stretched a little bit, but more or less, they're not one-offs. So I think there's actually an example I can open up with here. Do you mind if I spoil Z-Ranger?
Sure.
Okay, so Z-Ranger wasn't technically the first team to have a 6th Ranger, but it was the first that made it a yearly tradition, and it was the first to do a 6th Ranger the way we think of it today. Mm-hmm. And the important thing you need to know about the Burai Ranger was that he was super cool, super strong, and he fucking dies. At some point, he just gets fucking murdered, and his powers transfer to the Red Ranger. And they steal his Zord after he dies so that they can keep using the Zords. And that is sort of like a standard character death thing. In that, like, oh, this is a dangerous job, people die. But then they decided to adapt that to Power Rangers. Now, Tommy Oliver, the Green Ranger, doesn't die. He's still around in the show from time to time, kind of weirdly. Middle-aged Power Ranger, sure. But I think the thing about that is that a lot of people... this has died down since Game of Thrones became popular and everyone started hating it. But a lot of people seem to view death as being, like, always a good, cool, and mature decision.
Yeah, that's definitely died down over the years. Now it's pretty much exactly the opposite. You really need to know how you're using death in your story, otherwise it feels cheap.
Right. In Power Rangers, by not killing off Tommy, they were able to bring him back from time to time, and, he was a really popular character, and that sort of kept interest in the show going whenever they brought him back. And it also let them do some interesting stuff. Like, instead of killing him, they have him lose his powers. He does stop being the Green Ranger at around the same point, because they run out of footage with the Green Ranger in it. But, the way he loses his powers, for some reason Rita Repulsa has a candle, and if she burns it, his powers go away forever. And, that happens, then later the writer's like, wait, wouldn't she have candles for all the other Rangers? And so they do that, and Tommy gets his powers back for, 1 day to save them. They do stuff with him being alive. It's not just, he got squeamish and didn't want to kill him off. They do other things. And I think that's why, even in shows like Sentai, death has sort of died down. We both, well, I more read the manga, but you've seen Fist of the North Star,
Yeah.
Especially in Japanese media, it used to be you would kill off at least one person every episode.
Yeah, seriously. Someone has to die.
That was more about, bystanders, but even then, what's the survivability of being a reoccurring character in Fist of the North Star?
If you appear and you're not a child, you're going to die.
Are you Kenshiro, Lin, or Bat? Nice knowing ya.
Seriously, even if you think you're pretty prominent, you got your own style of martial arts, you're gonna survive 10 episodes, you'll get an arc, but you're still gonna die.
Yeah, goodbye Rei, Shu, Toki, Falco, Ain.
Just everyone.
It's not that death can't work, it's just that, with most things, there's a time to do it and a time not to do it, and it can be really easy to give in to whatever you think the public, opinion of it is at any given moment.
Yeah.
It also depends on the media. Alright, Secret Shame time. I used to watch Linkara's reviews a lot, and he was always super against death in comic books. Mm-hmm. Because because of its nature as a serialized media, once you kill off a character, that means I have no more stories to tell with this character, and neither does anyone else on Earth. So if you're gonna do it, you better be damn well sure you know what you're doing. And that's why nobody takes death in comic books seriously, because they keep killing them off and bringing them back.
Yeah.
Nobody talks to each other.
So, in general, I think death is, like we said earlier, a little overused. I feel like there are other stakes you can use to sort of take a character out or do something bad to them that's not necessarily killing them. But I think the main thing is you should also write the things around the death well. Like, other than just the scene itself, sort of the aftermath of it, you don't have to have characters, like, bring up the dead character, like, every episode or anything like that. But, a little bit of passing acknowledgement is usually nice. Not have them completely forget the character. Sort of weird example, since this is, not a cartoon or anime or anything like that, but Cheers, the actor who played Coach, passed away partway through the show, and he gets mentioned a few times, but mostly the last episode just has this really nice moment where the main character adjusts a picture of Coach in the last episode, and it's like this really small gesture that's actually really nice. But other than that, perfect example of death in general is just Final Fantasy IV. It's got a whole lot of quote-unquote death.
Okay, but first, I have to acknowledge that we just mentioned Cheers on this show.
Yep, sure did.
We only watch Japanese creative media. Or animation.
I mean, I can't stretch it to be an anime, sorry. I'm sorry, I know everybody was waiting for me to say Cheers is anime, but I'm sorry, it's just not.
Well, obviously it's tokusatsu.
But anyway,
I don't know enough about Cheers to make that kind of joke. Anyways, go on.
So yeah, that being said, Final Fantasy IV has a whole lot of heroic sacrifices, and it's kind of infamous for not really sticking to most of them. Like, only one character that you play as is actually killed in the game. And while some people are a little sour about, most of the other characters not dying, and sort of including myself, the tone of the game wouldn't really fit being that death-heavy. And also, there's the fact that the one person who does die kind of just dies for selfish reasons. Because, like I said, most people have heroic sacrifices, so they're like, oh no, a bad thing's going to happen. Get out of here, Cecil. But then they come back later and they're just fine. Except Tella, who's like, I'm gonna fucking kill Golbez. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna use this spell that'll kill me. Oh no, it killed me. But yeah, I do think that is actually, again, most people don't really like the fact that most characters survive, but I do think it's important to acknowledge that the only permanent death is the selfish one.
They were going for a thing, and it's not a thing that everyone would like, but it's clear that they knew what they were doing. That being said, I think the Tella's death scene is fucking badass.
Yeah, it's good.
God, it's to the point where I always misremember Golbez being hurt more than he actually was. Because that's what I want to happen. I want oh, I don't need to mess with you, old man. And then Golbez just gets thrown into the next dimension or something.
Yeah. I feel like X-Death actually gets his ass kicked pretty hard by the old man who sacrifices himself.
Yeah. That was more of Galoof refusing to give in.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like it was less of the, here I fucking come, get ready, and more of okay, stop, okay, you need to calm down, I'm running away, I'm done, no more, I can't handle this.
Alright, now that I'm on the subject though, Galuf's death in 5 fucking kicks ass as well. 2 games in a row where old men have really cool scenes where they die at the end. Gallup literally walks through fire at the start of the fight. I do kind of wish he just had an on-fire sprite in battle.
I also like how they do the power of love in a way that actually is really cool.
Yep.
Oh, you must hate me a whole lot. Well, that's why you think I'm fighting.
You fool, you utter imbecile.
The next one just runs away. This has nothing to do with the prompt I gave, but I do want more, like, bad guys running away when the hero says something cool. Just, nope, not ready for this. Goodbye.
Yeah, I get you do want your villains to be, all strong all the time, never show a sign of weakness, but come on. They can have one scene of running away.
Before we finish talking about this, we do need to mention the king of sudden death of reoccurring characters. JoJo.
Yep.
No one is safe.
Yep, end of season 1 proves that. You think you're safe because you're the main character? No.
Yeah. So I know no one likes Game of Thrones anymore, but one of the things that it does right with death is that it does a similar nobody is safe thing. In that, like, death can come for any character at any time.
Yep.
But I think that JoJo might do it better. Because, one, it never really gets used to it the way the Game of Thrones did.
Yeah.
And JoJo has a lot more characters mourning. Or not being able to mourn because of the shock of what's happened.
Yeah. See, here, I don't know anything about Game of Thrones, so I can only say yeah, but,
Oh, yeah, that's fine. I read the first book, it was okay.
But yeah, JoJo does it pretty well. And I do think that having different storylines and tones helps, because, a lot of people die in Part 3, and then you reach Part 4, and the tone changes so much that you just sort of reset, I guess. You're like, oh, nothing bad can happen here.
Bam! Bam!
I am glad, however, that Part 4 was willing to let Okuyasu live.
Yeah, that was also a really cool moment. I don't know if I want to watch the entirety of the Part 4 anime, but I do want to watch the final fight.
God, it's so good.
It's such a good fight. Like, I get why people love Jotaro versus Dio, I really do. But the Part 4 final boss fight is the best thing in JoJo. Just everything about it. It's really clearly structured. It doesn't abandon the puzzle fight aspect like Jotaro versus Dio did.
They can fly now.
Jotaro can stop time. Sure, fine. But yeah, that's probably enough talking about death. Not that we had any reason to talk about it, because, no one's going to die this episode.
Nobody at all. So, episode 44, The Truth Revealed.
I can no longer hear the phrase, the truth, without thinking of the Sly Cooper fan dub. Oh no, the truth!
You found my "you're a bitch" degree. We begin on a recap of Noel's no good, very bad day, before settling back into the scene of Kaichiro standing alone in the rain. Satoru returns, having lost track of Noel, though Kaichiro hardly responds. Satoru returns Kaichiro's gun, while still trying to convince him that Noel's escape proves his guilt. Elsewhere, Noel finally stops running, and sits down in some alleyway, the rain still pouring. Good Striker wanders in and tells Noel that the others were looking for him, and sure enough, Noel glances around the corner to see the Phantom Thieves. Guns drawn.
Every single character is pointing a gun at Noel at this point.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't have, like, Jim, Kogure, and Hilltop also pointing guns at him.
God, Hilltop just walks in. Hey, Noel.
Come with me.
Kairi leads with a very blunt, "So, you're not human, huh?" Noel tells the group that he should have told them about it sooner to prevent this sort of situation. But yes, he's not human. Roll the intro. We return to the same scene, though the Phantom Thieves have taken shelter from the rain for now. Noel tells them that the Lupin collection was created by his ancestors 1,000 years ago. Once there were a number of races who lived peacefully in the same world as the Ganglars. But that all changed when Degranio attacked, desiring to take over the world. The survivors fled and relocated themselves into human society. Noel, Kogure, and the rest of the Lupin family are descendants of those people. Eventually, around 100 years ago, Arsène Lupin succeeded in recovering the collection and obtained a wish. Kyrie has his doubts, hearing this from somebody from Ganglar Land. Noel nonetheless assures the group that the collection can grant a wish. But the Phantom Thieves grow quiet and refuse to listen to Noel any further. Noel apologizes and leaves back into the rain. At Police HQ, Hilltop is in disbelief over the situation. Sakura reminds everyone that they can't be sure of it yet, because if Noel really was a traitor, then he'd been lying to them the entire time. Tsukasa argues that it could have all just been an act, though, just like Sakura, she doesn't want the situation to be true. She's just less inclined to deny the information from Satoru outright. Elsewhere, Kaichiro is still in the car, flashing back to his duel with Noel. Satoru asks him why he hasn't started the car yet. I think they've just been there for hours.
It's been 2 hours, Keiichiro. We really need to go.
Please, I can only listen to this music for so long.
I can only listen to my remixes of Megalovania for so long. That's a lie. I could listen to that forever. But we do need to get going.
I only have 72 unique mixes of Megalovania. Come on.
If you heard these mixes where they swap out like the first and third beats, it's still really good. You can't ruin Megalovania, Keiichiro. You really can't.
Kaichiro reminds Satoru of the time that he told Kaichiro and Tsukasa that they needed to listen to each other's feelings rather than just shouting at each other. Now, Kaichiro is wondering if he ever took the time to listen to how Noel felt. But Satoru, with his newfound impatience, says that there's no need to, because Noel's obviously guilty. Kaichiro asks Satoru why he's so impatient lately, but Satoru interrupts him by saying that something's come up, and so he leaves the car. Now alone, Kaichiro glances down and sees that, oddly enough, Satoru left his music player behind. Back at Jure, everyone is very quiet and sad. Umika asks who it is that Noel wants to bring back, and Kogure is suddenly there with the answer. Noel wants to bring back Arsène Lupin himself.
Okay, before you go any further, I need to explain what went through my mind the first time I saw this scene. I thought Noel was going to be, like, a huge fan of Arsène Lupin. Like, Arsène Lupin, he lived around 100 years ago, but Noel grew up hearing stories about him and wanted to bring him back. Now, you explain what actually happened.
Kyrie's response is, what the hell? Just how old is Arsène? Which, good question. Kogure does not give an exact response, which can only mean that Lupin is an ageless being who has been around since time immemorial. Anyway, to Kogure, Noel, and everyone else in close relation, Arsène Lupin was their salvation. For Noel, he had always been an orphan until Arsène happened to find him in a rainy alley one night. After Arsène took him in and taught him about the collection, Noel had a reason to live. However, that all changed. At long last, we get to see the full version of that one scene that's been in the intro since the intro's been around. Degranio, Destra, and a small pack of Podamen break into Arsène's hideout. Arsène, alone, sits calmly as he's surrounded. We then cut to the hideout in shambles and in flames, as Noel runs in to find Arsène Lupin, dead on the floor. Back in the present, Kogure tells the group that he and Noel are risking themselves for the collection for the same reasons. He then puts his book down on the table and tells them that it's connected to the Lupin family's treasure trove. He hopes that things continue as they are, and the collection is gathered. He then bows and takes his leave, the book still in the spot he left it.
Okay, so this is a good, serious, impactful scene. But we were laughing our fucking asses off when the scene first played.
Yeah.
Noel wants to revive Arsene Lupin, his adoptive dad.
Yeah, like, come on.
Remember we were speculating on what Noel's connection to the Lupin family was, and I was like, well, he's probably like a cousin. He wouldn't be just a direct descendant of Lupin. You can't get much more direct than this, actually.
Yeah, just adopted son.
He's Arsene's son. This means that in episode 34, when everyone had to shoot their loved ones, Noel had to shoot Arsene Lupin.
Yeah, couldn't fucking do it.
And I pointed this out to you, but that's why when Lupin does show up and like bequeath Lupin Magnum to Red, the camera zooms in on Noel's face and he looks kind of sad.
Yep.
I thought maybe he was like sad because he wanted the Magnum, but no.
No, he was sad because he just had to be faced with the idea of shooting Arsène Lupin, his
And
dad.
he gets to see his dad again, and he's being super nice to someone else. Oh god, he was probably thinking like, I wish he could be saying that about me.
No. The camera shifts to Kyrie's face before we fade back to Noel in the rain. He takes out his versus changer and holds it close to him before looking forward. And that's enough of that. We return to Police HQ, where Sakia realizes that their intel had been leaked before Noel even arrived in Japan, and we flash back to instances of that. Tsukasa starts to say that's because Noel was leaking it from the French HQ, but then she has a realization. They were attacked by Ganglars when transporting Yoshi, but that was Noel's plan. But the transportation was Noel's plan, and it was something he had proposed to the French HQ himself. So why would he have Ganglars attack his own transportation vehicle? She stands up as both she and Sakia realize that the leaks were never coming from the Japanese HQ in the first place. Back at Jur, Umika breaks what I can only assume was hours of silence by saying that Noel's just like them. Tuma mutters about Noel putting all of his faith in Arsene's claims, and of course, Kyrie notes that this is Noel's only hope, because, you know, it's how he emphasizes with people. Despair.
Mm-hmm.
And he does so while brushing his hand against Kogure's book. Later, at the bay, Satoru rushes to Kaichiro and asks him if they found Noel. With some struggle, Kaichiro tells him that they found the truth. Sakia then arrives and says that Noel isn't the spy. He's then followed by Tsukasa, who tells Satoru that the leak wasn't coming from the Japanese branch, it was from the French HQ. Satoru questions their suspicions, only for Kaichiro to come out and say that he'd never suspect the old Satoru. He then pulls out the music player he left behind. One with no actual music loaded onto it. Satoru was pretending to listen to music the entire time. Satoru turns his back to them, gives the audience a good yare yare, and says the cops must have some keen senses. Suddenly, everyone's hands glow as they draw their guns on one another. None of them can control themselves as their fingers shakily hover closer to the triggers. However, they're interrupted by a calling card which knocks them all to the ground. We cut to the card as it falls to the ground, revealing Noel to be the thrower. God, I love that camera work.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he has those too.
Noel says that he used that power on him before, as we flash back to the scene where Noel pulled his gun out on everyone. So, you know, it wasn't him, it was actually just the green glow. And we also see Satoru with the biggest smile on his face, so it's a good thing nobody happened to look to him at that moment.
Mm-hmm. And Noel looks really shocked, so it's a good thing no one was looking at Noel either.
Pat Rangers, where were you even looking? Was it just the gun?
Just looking at Tokagale, I know he's mesmerizing, but still.
Satoru says that Noel suspected him from the beginning, and Noel replies that he learned of the leaks when he'd checked Jim's computer the other night. Noel then throws another card, revealing that Satoru was a Ganglar all along. Using a collection piece to control bodies, and one to change his voice, he had ample ability to deceive everyone. Noel also notes that he changed his voice to Hilltop so that he could send Noel to Nutshak's hideout, so we get to see that scene again. And of course, he also notes that Toxic Seahorse had sent his picture to Nutshak as well. Seahorse then changes his voice to Satoru's, just for the hell of it. Tsukasa asks him how he disguised himself as Satoru, and Toxic Seahorse says that he just happened to get a disguise that was Shinonome Satoru. Kaichiro asks him where Satoru is now. Seahorse doesn't know, but he does have a decent idea that if Satoru is a disguise, then he's probably dead. Naturally, this revelation hits the tactical unit pretty hard. They all Kaisatsu change and charge in to fight. The fight goes pretty well for the Pat Rangers. Fight highlights include Sango doing a short aura, as well as Ichigo attempting to just fucking punch Toxic Seahorse, only for Seahorse to stop his punch, only for Sango to leap and kick Ichigo's arm so his punch goes through. She kicks Ichigo's punch to make it better.
That's the stuff you get in Sentai you don't get in any other show.
Yeah, do that, Game of Thrones. Come on, I dare you.
Two people are locked in blades and somebody hits the blade they want to win, but from behind.
Anyway, Toxic Seahorse unfortunately still has the ability to control bodies, which does stop the fight short. Once again, he tries to get the cops to shoot each other, and also drops the fact that this is the treasure he tricked Nutshak into giving up. But his plan is stopped short by a shot from the Lupin Magnum, which frees the Pat Rangers from his control. And while Toxic Seahorse is on the ground, Blue and Yellow leap in and enter his safe combinations 3, 1, 0, and 9, 3, 0. They nab La Maîtresse des Marionnettes and Un Million de Voix, while Red waltzes in his super form. X asks him what they're doing there, and Red merely responds, "Good question." They get a short chuckle before Red nabs Siren Striker and launches it so that X can take his super form. With that done, Red and the other Lupins grapple on out so that the Pat Rangers can finish the job. And thanks to Good Striker wandering in, asking if Noel had made up with everyone yet, they can with a combined might of Super X and Pat Ranger Yugo. They fire their super attacks, and Toxic Seahorse takes the form of an explosion. Ghosh then enters and says that she and X can have some fun later, which I can only assume means she's waiting to fuck at a nearby Denny's. For now, though, Toxic Seahorse is big, so the Pat Rangers form their Kaiser, while X forms the Emperor. But as it turns out, Toxic Seahorse is a pretty good shot. Knows how to use cover, too. So X hands Siren Striker over to the Kaiser, so they can form the Siren Pat Kaiser for the first time. With the power of their new machine, they put Toxic Seahorse on the ropes, before finishing him off with Pat Ranger's Siren Gunner Strike. Not the most creative name, but you don't have to be creative when blowing up gangster seahorses.
I appreciate that Siren Pat Kaiser's ability is just say no to damage.
Nah.
Yes, I'm gonna shoot you. Nah.
Nah. On a nearby rooftop, Zamigo laments the loss of such a handy tipster. So hey, Toxic Seahorse is actually a pretty important character, I guess.
Was a pretty important character.
He's dead now. Back at the bay, Kaichiro approaches the music player he had dropped earlier. Tsukasa is close behind him, while Saki remains a ways away. Kaichiro looks at his own device and asks Satoru to watch over them. He swears they'll find the truth for his sake. Back at Jur, Kairi is the one to place all the treasures into Kogure's book. The group has already told Noel that Kogure shared their story, but Kairi says that this is Noel's only hope, so they have to help out. The Jur trio pull out their versus changers and allow Noel to join their promise. End of episode.
So that was a good episode.
Alright, so, let's talk about the Ganglar.
Mm-hmm.
This is another
Um,
Ganglar that I found some, pretty good, wiki entries for.
well, let me
So,
start by
here,
saying his name. Okay, I'll read this.
here's his personality.
Sadistic character.
He loves to see the Pat Rangers uncontrollably try to kill themselves. And that's all that's under personality.
I mean, that's all he did.
And here's his criminal record: identity theft, leaking classified information, and framing an upstanding citizen.
Listen here. Noel is not an upstanding citizen.
Noel clearly wrote this wiki entry.
But speaking of identity theft, I wanted to mention this Ganglar's name in Japanese does in fact translate to identity theft.
Yeah, that rules.
I'm identity theft the Ganglar.
It's me.
So, it's identity theft and then a couple of other syllables. The seahorse look is kind of cool.
Yeah, he's got a good design.
But yeah, for a character that's done a lot, like apparently killed Satoru, or benefited from his death at least.
Took his form.
Mm-hmm. Trying to frame Noel.
But like, he's been giving Zamigo information all this time. Like, we've known about Zamigo's informant for at least a little while. And then here he is. You don't even learn that he was the informant until he's dead. So yeah, this is a Ganglar whose importance very much outmatches his personality. We've had a whole lot of really funny Ganglars these past few episodes, and now we have the serious one, whose effects are very important. What he does is interesting, and changes up the story a lot, but he himself is just sort of there.
So I guess we should talk about the other thing that happened this episode. Rest in peace, Satoru.
Yeah.
I forgot to ask when we watched, did you see that coming, and if so, at what point?
I mean, I didn't. The weird thing is, like, I figured he was a Ganglar in disguise, but it didn't hit me that, like, this is just a normal Ganglar disguise, not like a fancy power. So it gets him from the same place every other Ganglar does.
Mm-hmm. The graves of the innocent.
Yeah, it just didn't occur to me that Satoru had just fucking gotten killed off screen. Just 10 seconds after walking out of Jur at the end of his special, he just gets shanked by a Ganglar.
He gets hit by the Smash Brothers beam.
Man, the Smash DLC is getting really weird. It didn't even go for one of the main Pat Rangers.
He's going for my joke at the end of his episode, just, and now the end of... Hey, stop that, hey! So yeah, it's weird that Satoru was back, and it's weirder that he's dead.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, Sentai is no stranger to killing off Rangers. Especially... Actually, they usually kill off a Ranger and then replace them. This is kind of backwards. They replace a Ranger and then kill him off later.
Yeah. He doesn't even get to be a Ranger. He gets to see them at one point.
Yeah. So I don't... It's hard for me to say this death is done well, but it also doesn't piss me off, so I don't think it was done that poorly.
Yeah.
Like, the thing is, I can't imagine being a really big fan of Satoru because we don't know enough about him.
Yeah, he only appears in the special, which we watched, but it's fully possible that, like, somebody came into this not knowing who Satoru was in the first place.
Yeah. So it's not even a situation where, like, oh, this character got robbed. Like, did he, though? Did he really?
Yeah, so I suppose it may have been more interesting if there were a character who appeared more regularly that this happened to. Because again, like, the event itself, really well done. But yeah, It's Satoru. He's okay. I liked him well enough in that special.
Who's gonna be really fucking weird about coffee now?
Yeah, that's the most accurate, that Toxic Seahorse was, is just being a weirdo about coffee. Didn't bother finding any music. Liked
His
sweets
note
all of a sudden. But damn, he can make some weird coffee metaphors.
his note card had 2 bullet points. Just 1, likes music, 2, weird about coffee. So one of the takes that I've seen about this episode was something like, oh, 44 episodes in and the Pot Rangers finally have a reason to hate the villains.
They already did, though.
I
They like justice, so they hate the Ganglars.
People talk about Toku fans in general, and I think Sentai fans specifically, about being generally like cool and chill, and not assholes the way that fan nerds on the internet can be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is about this show specifically that's flying in the face of that. Because like Q Ranger's not weird about this stuff. People were fine about Q Ranger.
Maybe it's just because the toy sales were so bad. This can't be reasonable with those toy sales.
But it strikes me super weird that people like, so you don't expect the police to do their job because it's their job?
Yeah.
I mean, you're right, but still.
They have a moral and career-based reason to hate the Ganglars. Now,
Like,
granted,
maybe hate is the wrong word. I think they even said oppose. Like, what are you talking about?
Okay, yeah, that's definitely wrong. They've done it since episode 1, when they didn't have cool suits that let them fight good. Sakya had to have a shotgun, but he still was ready to fight a Ganglar.
But yeah, I mentioned this before that people felt the Power Rangers didn't have a personal stake, and I don't think they needed one. And I'm okay with them having one now, and I'm okay with it coming this late, but the people who are just like, oh, I fucking took it long enough, like, what is your deal?
Like, yeah, that's definitely a case of, like, now they sort of have a reason to sort of zero in on certain Ganglars. They have a reason to sort of merge into what the Lupins are doing, and that's fine. And I'm trying to think of some other example where, like, people do things during the course of the story, and then near the end they're like, I gotta go kick that guy's ass. Nothing's coming to mind at the moment, though.
The other thing, Tsukasa especially reacts to Satoru's death. But if I remember right, Keiichiro has a line of, like, disguises are made from humans. Like, he had no idea that, like, every Ganglar they expose would, like, used to be a person.
Yeah, that's actually kind of a revelation for us, too.
Mm-hmm.
Zamigo's line of soylent disguises.
Yeah. So, like, a lot of the fans and Tsukasa, I think, narrowed in on what happened to Satoru, but Keiichiro was just kind of taken aback at how much death has been happening, and he didn't really know.
Yep. So, I guess with that, before we talk about all the Noel stuff, so this is kind of a really big revelation, though, and it's kind of helped me think that the problem I had a few episodes ago with how the Lupin's loved ones, how they weren't actually dead. Initially, I was like, it's a little weird. You know, the show sort of made us assume they were dead, and they weren't, so I had mixed feelings about that. But now this has just looped it back around to, like, okay, they might not be dead yet, but, like, in a few episodes, we could just fucking see Kyrie's brother or something.
Yeah, like, I remember way back before I saw this episode, this was a theory that a lot of fans had, that Zamigo made disguises from iced people. And so I was, like, really hoping that you just kept asking for the episode where one of the Ganglars looks like Kyrie's brother. It's just like, well, deal with this now. Actually, that wouldn't work. It would have to be Aya.
Oh, God.
You know, now that I think about this, I probably shouldn't have. I shouldn't be expecting this after episode 34 because I already did that.
Mm-hmm.
But it is still a little strange of just like, well, they're not dead yet.
So,
they could die at any moment. They are still in danger.
They are very much in danger, and now Zamigo's got thanks again, because before it was like, oh, he's just teleporting people. That's not a huge... Oh, he can kill them at any time, though. He can just skin a person when he feels like it.
He's not teleporting them into a hotel with Netflix. Like, it was never a good thing that he was teleporting people, but this does make the danger a bit more immediate.
Yeah, so they don't have a time limit per se, but now we, the audience, know that there is a looming threat of they could be killed. I think it also makes the moment of Umika and Tuma telling Noelle about Zamigo, kind of nice as well, because now they have the whole alternate goal to finding the collection, which Noelle's very much into, but he's still like, oh, alright, let's punch Zamigo then.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, if you don't have anything else to say about the sudden revelation that everyone is in a lot of danger,
Mm-hmm.
time to talk about Noelle.
I mean, I kind of already yelled about everything I wanted to yell about. He's Arsene Lupin's son.
Yep, so there's that. There's, again, the thing about he still wants to help the Lupin Rangers, even though they sort of hinted that maybe they don't want to get the collection, per se. Or at least they didn't at the time. Now they're sort of back on that track, I think.
Yeah.
But, yeah, this was just a really good continuation of the last episode, which asked the question, what do the teams do when the possibility of Noelle's betrayal comes up? And so we have this episode where the Lupin Rangers really don't take it that well.
I think it's surprisingly poorly, considering they're the team built on mistrust.
Yeah. Well, they're built on mistrust, but they have their own weird trust within their own group, so...
Turns out they're just teens being edgy.
They're just kind of shitty teens.
It actually super hurts to trust someone and have them betray you. No matter how cool you try to be about it.
Yep.
Not that I would call what Noelle did a betrayal.
Yeah, no.
They feel betrayed, even though I don't think they should, but still. This is a weird situation.
They're just very sensitive to sudden new outside information. But the Pat Rangers, they really want to believe Satoru, but that doesn't mean they just automatically want to leave Noelle's side. And so they're going to initially believe the new information, again, because it's from their friend, and initially it seems, we'll say airtight, even though a lot of it hinges on just a lot of coincidences and Satoru repeatedly preventing Noelle from actually saying anything.
Yeah, it's not airtight, but it is sound, at least at the moment.
Yeah. But then both groups, of course, resolve the issue. The Lupin Rangers through empathy, after hearing Noelle's story and realizing that he can relate a lot to them, even though he did hide one fact about himself, they come to realize that they can trust him and let him into the group. Like, more than they did before. They let him join in the promise and everything. The Pat Rangers, meanwhile, resolve the situation by, well, searching for truth, much to the name of their song.
Mm-hmm. So when the Lupin Rangers found out about Noelle, their first response was, oh, here we go.
I mean, yeah.
And Noelle was just trying to give his MAX power to this whole thing.
Ganglar's Paradise. Anyway.
Thank you for your contribution.
But yeah, in order to believe Noelle, they come to the heart of the matter by figuring out, hey, wait a second.
This doesn't add up. I do really like that for once in the entirety of fiction, we finally get a story where somebody's being framed and the cops figure it out in their own goddamn selves.
Yeah, yeah.
God, finally, competent police officers. So not to reference the, I don't know if it's still current, but the Scooby-Doo that looks like it's drawn by Seth MacFarlane.
Oh god, that one.
There's a set of screen caps going around of Daphne saying, like, you know how at the end of all of our mysteries, the cops always say, what a good job, kids? Yeah, why does no one ever say, and a horrible job, police officers? So, like, I'm never going to watch that show, but every time I see those screen caps, I go, they might be onto something, actually.
So yeah, I guess in addition to just the fact that the Pat Rangers wants justice and therefore they're going to reach the truth of the matter, yeah, they also, just do their actual fucking jobs.
Mm-hmm. Oh my god. But yeah,
anyway,
this was a
why I
pretty
think the
good
traitor subplot is neat, because it's not really a traitor subplot more as much as it is just questioning loyalty and, I don't know if this is the resolution to Noel's whole thing, but it certainly feels like it, because Noel's been on shaky grounds with both groups for a while now, but this feels like they're just sort of accepting him. Maybe more the Lupin Rangers than the Pat Rangers. The Pat Rangers ended on a sad scene, but still.
Yeah, I think the Fat Rangers also kind of accepted him more after episode 38. Or at the very least, they were on the same, page. But yeah, this traitor subplot actually, furthered characterization for all people involved.
Yeah, it just didn't say, alright, Noel's the traitor, leave the show now, you're done.
Yeah, that's sort of the good thing about this one, is that it doesn't... The subplot didn't grind everything to a halt, it actually moved things forward a bit.
It was a good traitor subplot by not really being much of a traitor subplot. It's a traitor frame.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't have much else to talk about.
Yeah, no,
regarding
I think
this.
I touched upon everything I wanted to get to.
Yeah, I have more fun picking apart setups than I do payoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So, for this, it's just, alright, talk about what happened, I'll react, and that's all I've got. There's only so many ways I can say, Noelle is our scene's kid, before it gets to get a little boring.
Don't worry. The everything else part is why I'm here.
Aw, thank
it's like
you,
it's
honey.
technically what I went to school for or something.
Aw. But yeah, I don't really have plans to do another podcast, but if we do, it'll have to be something I haven't seen, so I can actually speculate instead of pretend to speculate and risk spoiling things. But yeah, that's everything I wanted to say if you're done.
Yep.
Okay. That does it for this week's episode. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we are at LRVSPR. Fafner's at FafnerMasumune. If you want to email us, you can email us at LupinRecap via PatReview@gmail.com, and we will see you in the next episode. Adieu.